America Chavez! Is that like a personal attack or something? Or...
You could have saved us. Why didn't you do more?
Nerdrotic.com.
Let's not bury the lead here. Disney Marvel isn't failing. Disney Marvel has already failed. This was supposed to be a review of Loki Season 2, Episode 1, but I decided to wait until something actually happens, possibly when the series ends. Sure, I watched the episode. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It also wasn't very good. It was 10 minutes of setup stretched over 40 minutes. But when I saw the reaction from the general audience and the Disney Marvel fans, or should I say, the lack of reaction, it became pretty clear that the inevitable has arrived. Apathy. Disney Marvel's destruction is so undeniable, the corporate media can no longer ignore it. And apparently, neither can Disney Marvel. We'll get to that later. So join me, you over 864,000 practitioners of common sense and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. Let's go over how Marvel lost its way. From Time Magazine of all places, and as with all corporate and shill media, they get a couple of things right, but
Like a poor marksman, you keep missing the target.
the reasons for the death of the Disney Marvel franchise could be applied to any other franchise we've seen murdered over the last 5 or 6 years. Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, The Witcher, just to name a few, and these very same reasons can be applied to franchises not being able to get out of the gate, like The Rings of Power or The Wheel of Time. But the case of Disney Marvel's failure is very unique, because they've done it before, in another division of the subsidiary Marvel Comics, which just so happens to also be owned by the parent company that's going through the same process, Disney. Even after all of this time, almost half of a decade of hundreds of people making thousands of videos with millions of comments on this platform alone of people trying to get through to Marvel and Hollywood, this still may come as a bit of a shocker to Tinseltown and the corporate access media. Turns out all of those toxic fans were right all along. They used to be pretty pissed, but now it's looking like they just don't care. After the author essentially vents about how much she didn't like Loki Season 2, Episode 1 for 3 or 4 paragraphs, not sure how she managed that. Again, nothing happened aside from the introduction of another girl boss and some women argued. We get to this, I'm not the only frustrated fan. Marvel Studios is losing viewers. Audiences used to line up to snag the best seats to the latest Avengers movies. Now they're queuing up for Barbenheimer instead. And thanks to the well-timed WGA and Film Actors Guild strike, which we will get to, we may not see anything like Barbenheimer for at least a couple of years or ever again. Not long ago, Marvel movies usually snagged the top 3 or 4 spots on the highest grossing list of films every year. This year at the global box office, Barbie, the Super Mario Brothers movie, and Oppenheimer all outgrossed both Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was pretty good and probably the last good Marvel film, and Antifa Man and Wasp, Commie-Mania. In fact, Commie-Mania ranks all the way down at number 10 for the year, performing below expectations. That's putting it lightly. Tellingly, Commie-Mania had an impressive opening weekend, but ticket sales declined dramatically in the following weeks, a pattern with Marvel films outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, a combination of poor reviews and a bad word of mouth sunk sales. But where Marvel has really faltered is on D+. Fans have complained so loudly that there are too many mediocre MCU shows. Well, that's not the only thing they've complained about, that Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige has vowed to slow the churn. Unfortunately, all of that crap has sped up the churn on D+. And no, the bleeding hasn't stopped. From just a couple of months ago, Disney sheds record 11.7 million subscribers. Yes, some of that has to do with losing the rights to the India Cricket Premier League, but here's the rub. Disney had full access to a country with a population of 1.4 billion people, and surprisingly enough, none of their intersectionalist crap or their back catalog caught on with anyone, particularly with Miss Marvel. What, the Pakistani Muslim superhero didn't catch on in India? Big shocker. And now Disney is looking to sell their assets in India. It's hard to hit the zeitgeist when there's so much product out there and so much quote-unquote content, Feige told Entertainment Weekly. And there's your problem. It's called product and content. according to the guy who's running Marvel. These were fun stories with great characters that actually mattered to a lot of people, but now, Kevin, you're right. You have turned it into product and content. The author writes, perhaps the come down was inevitable. Sure, but a complete and total disaster and failure in every aspect was avoidable. Then Time Magazine's Elena Doctorman goes over a few ways storytelling at Marvel Studios has gone wrong. And with some of the reasons she lays out, she isn't wrong. Disney Marvel has never recovered from the death of Iron Man, the death of Captain America, and the loss of Black Panther. 3 B-list characters from the comics at best that they made household names. I'll also add the complete vandalization of characters like Doctor Strange, Thor, Daredevil, Kingpin, and Loki, completely fumbling Marvel Stage 4 and now the multiversal saga with Stage 5 and 6 by having your big bad Kang defeated twice, once by female Loki and the other time by Ant-Man. She also mentions the obvious oversaturation and the introduction of entirely new characters has not gone according to plan. No, the MCU hasn't gone to plan, partially because it never had one. But again, a lot of us recognized this years ago, and now we have a lot more company because this failure was inevitable, especially since Disney Marvel Studios is repeating the exact same mistakes as Disney Marvel Comics. Let's go back in time briefly to the early 2010s. After surviving bankruptcy, Marvel Comics came off a pretty good run in the aughts. The MCU had just begun and things were looking up, but that was about to change thanks to the activism-fueled, all-new, all-different Marvel. An era brought to you by new and old activists, editors, and creatives. Then, what the corpos and activists will call classic legacy characters and I will call main characters are sacrificed on the altar of agenda. So the activists and corpos could introduce their all new, all different, mostly tokenized characters. Simply put, they just race and gender swapped everybody, focused on identity over story, and called it progress. We got the likes of female Captain Marvel, formerly Miss Marvel, Black Falcon Captain America, female Thor, female Iron Man, who is now known as Ironheart, new Miss Marvel, America Chavez, and the totally awesome Asian Hulk.
Hey, you cheat, Dr. Jones, you cheat!
We got pregnant Spider-Woman, we got a pregnant member of the Nova Corps, who both went into battle incidentally, and we almost got Snowflake in Safe Space. And during this era, they killed Tony Stark, made Spider-Man a male feminist, and made Captain America a Yahtzee. And that doesn't cover the half of it, turning what was the American mythology for generations, filled with engaging characters and brilliant stories, into subverted gobbledygook with the remaining main male characters being completely vandalized and a bunch of mostly women sitting around tables eating and talking about their feelings and sexuality. This led to a massive wave of fan criticism, and for years they went to all social media platforms, including YouTube, and vented their frustration. Creators and editors who were already losing their mind over a certain president being elected decided to do everything but blame themselves. They blamed the Orange Man, they blamed Twitter, they blamed YouTube, they blamed the patriarchy, they blamed toxic fandom. Then the creatives and editors had the bright idea of gaslighting the paying customer by calling them racist or misogynist or any other ist and phobe you can think of.
That's racist!
This obviously led to a dip in quality and diminishing returns.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book.
Okay.
The willing and able partners of the mainstream American comic book industry, the Access Media, reinforced the toxic fan narrative by writing hit piece after hit piece on fans. Comic book fans revolt. Not surprisingly, sales decline further. During this era, Marvel Comics editor-in-chief Axel Alonso is fired.
And these are very, very diverse books.
You're fired. Get out of here.
COVID and the Summer of Love make everything worse, speeding up Marvel Comics' inevitable decline. So after years of being told to f*** off by the creators they financially support, the comic book fans did just that. Some were vocal about it, most were not. Shops are still closing, and sales for the mainstream superhero comic book industry are so low, they stopped reporting them. The best we get are estimates. And as far as the creators and editors are concerned that caused all this mess, well, when they're not posting GoFundMes to pay their rent, well, they're crying on Twitter about #ComicsBrokeMe, when the truth is, they broke comics. The industry is now fragmenting, which is probably a good thing, and manga sales are exploding. And Marvel Comics, which was built up over decades by brilliant people was destroyed in just a few years by idiots. But Marvel Studios decided to say, hold my Bud Light. Now tell me if any of this sounds familiar. Let's go back to 2019. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is flourishing. It's a money printing machine and Kevin Feige could do no wrong. But that was all about to change with the activism and intersectionalism fueled MCU Stage 4. Kevin Feige had revealed that the number of female superheroes will soon outnumber the male superheroes in the MCU, and he wasn't kidding. Marvel Studios started casting writers and directors for their identity rather than hiring them for their talent, and yes, they started focusing on identity over storytelling, leading to mantles being passed, another term for race and gender swaps. And we were introduced to characters like female Captain Marvel and Black Captain Falcon America, female Loki, female Thor, America Chavez, and Ironheart. We were recently introduced to the most powerful superhero in the MCU, the female Super Skrull, Gaia. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the MCU jacking up one of the best characters from the comics, She-Hulk. Iron Man is dead, Captain America is dead, Black Panther is dead, and Spidey is on loan, and the remaining male characters have been turned into a joke. And the once historic cinematic franchise decided to skip decades of great stories and jump right into the all-new, all-different Marvel, turning the Marvel Cinematic Universe filled with engaging characters and mostly brilliant stories respectably adapted from the Marvel comics of old into meaningless, boring intersectional content. A wave of fan criticism ensues. Fans flood social media to vent their frustration. Creatives and adult pretenders start blaming everybody but themselves, getting the bright idea to label the paying customer racist or misogynist or any other istophobe you could think of. They blamed it on bots, they blamed it on review bombing, they blamed it on the Russians, they blamed it on the patriarchy. COVID and the summer of love make everything worse, speeding up the inevitable decline. Quality goes down. This leads to diminishing returns. The access media, wanting to maintain their access, help reinforce the toxic fandom narrative. During this time, Marvel Studios executive producer Victoria Alonso is fired. Fans revolt, sales decline, and now most of the paying customers are walking away. Some are vocal about it, most are not. I seem to recall there's an old saying, those who do not learn from herstory are doomed to repeat it. Again, Disney Marvel has already failed, and general interest in this franchise is diminishing into apathy like a fart in the wind. And yes, this is undeniable. Even the corporate shill media has written multiple articles about this, including Variety from back in August. Secret Invasion was a mess, but Marvel had already lost its way. And now we have Time Magazine's How Marvel Lost Its Way, even though it missed most of the reasons. It was bad writing, oversaturation, and bad writing, completely failing at introducing new characters because of bad writing, ego, hubris, and bad writing, intersectionalism, forced agenda, with bad writing. So, things are not just bad, they're catastrophic, and Disney is fully aware of it. I've heard as much. I was told that Disney Marvel did everything they could to give Echo a leg up. Admittedly, this isn't a show that many people have heard about, including multiple reshoots, and they even considered trashing it. I've also heard that the Marvels tested lower than any MCU film in its history. That's probably why a lot of people are speculating that the MCU is headed for a full reboot. Time will tell. But there are signs that Disney Marvel might be embarrassed by their own content. Finally, after the delay of the completed Agatha multiple times and the completed Echo multiple times, Ironheart, which is completed and been delayed multiple times, has been delayed again. Iron Man's new D+ spin-off show gets a massive release delay again. According to the US Copyrights Office, Marvel Studios filed a listing for the Ironheart premiere that seemingly reveals a new date of September 3rd, 2025, revealing a massive delay for the Iron Man D+ spin-off. The new D+ release date likely marks an approximation from Marvel Studios, and it could still shift around, but it does confirm the studio has no intent to release Ironheart anytime before fall of 2025. The release date will come almost 3 years after principal photography wrapped and 2 years after the original poster release date of fall 2023. Daredevil Born Again has been pushed back to 2025 as well, and I think that's a good thing considering it's a full reboot and it's missing most of its supporting cast and all of its original writers. Correction.
And I got news for you.
Now it's missing all of its new writers and directors. From The Hollywood Reporter, Daredevil Born Again hits the reset button again as Marvel overhauls its TV business. Wow, it's almost like people have recognized Disney Marvel has gotten to shit. It didn't take long to see the problem after Marvel Studios' Daredevil Born Again paused production in mid-June during the writer's strike. Fewer than half of the series' 18 episodes have been shot, but it was enough for Marvel executives, including Chief Kevin Feige, to review the footage and come away with a clear-eyed assessment. The show wasn't working. So in late September, Marvel quietly let go of head writers Chris Ord and Matt Corman and also released the directors for the remainder of the season as part of a significant creative reboot of the series. The Hollywood Reporter has learned the studio is now on the hunt for new writers and directors for the project. And then we get this banger from Disney Marvel's probably soon to be fired head of streaming and television, Brad Winderbaum. It comes down to how can we tell stories in television that honor what's so great about the source material? We also can't forget Blade is being overhauled for the second or third time, I lost count.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
And again, thanks to the strikes, the one Disney Marvel film people are actually interested in, Deadpool 3, will be delayed as well. Call me crazy, but I don't think shows and films like Echo, Agatha, whatever the hell it's called, Ironheart, Loki Season 2, The Marvels, Falcon, Captain Black America are going to turn things around. And yes, the WGA strike and the Film Actors Guild strike just hastened Disney Marvel's demise. But this does give Disney Marvel an opportunity, say something like Disney Star Wars doesn't have a chance, even though it's a small one. It gives them time to reevaluate, possibly learn from Warner Brothers' mistakes with DC and the DCEU. Every single film set in the Snyderverse has been a massive flop since Aquaman, and it will be rounded out nicely with the upcoming flop, Aquaman 2. All of this is doing irrevocable damage to their overall brand and putting James Gunn behind a Jupiter-sized 8-ball. But there is some good news for Warner Brothers. It turns out the canceled Batgirl film is the most profitable DCEU film of the year. Will Disney Marvel learn from Warner Brothers' mistakes? Well, since I just laid out that they can't learn from their own, no. Can Disney Marvel turn things around? Yes, they can, but they won't. Here's some undeserved and unsolicited advice for Disney Marvel. Cancel all your shows, including Loki, before next Thursday. Cancel the rumored Gaia female Super Skrull show, and I can't believe I'm saying this because this goes against my best interest and what I want most this year. Cancel the Marvels. Cancel the Kang Dynasty, Thunderbolts, and Black Falcon Captain America. Release Deadpool 3 and the Secret Wars, take a few years off, and start over. Reboot with a proper Fantastic Four, recast Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and everyone else, and bring in a proper X-Men with creatives who know what the hell they're doing, and you may have a chance. Again, Disney Marvel could do this, but they won't. But here's the reality. Do you think the Fantastic Four is gonna look like this? Or are they gonna look like this? And don't get me started with the X-Men.
It's funny that people call it the X-Men. There's a lot of female superheroes in that X-Men group, so I think it's outdated.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
As much as I've mocked Disney Marvel and will continue to do so, bring on them Marvels. And this one goes out to Disney Marvel, Disney Star Wars, Disney, and Hollywood overall. Whatever criticism you heard, remember, it was legitimate criticism for the most part. Sure, it was in the form of frustration and even anger. Maybe instead of deflecting, projecting, or outright attacking fans, you should have listened because they were still telling you they cared. Apathy is the franchise killer. Just ask Disney Star Wars. I know I'm just an idiot with a microphone and an internet connection who covers pop culture and escapism and occasionally tries to provide some, because escapism is important. No, it doesn't mean you should get lost in it, stick your head in the sand, or ignore what's going on in your own life. But considering what's going on in the world right now, this is when it's needed most. I hear time and time again how stories, be it a book, a comic book, an anime, a manga, a TV show, or a film, have gotten a lot of people through a lot of hard times. A divorce, a lost job, a lost family member or friend, a lost pet, a bout with depression, or just a bad day. And I know this because I've gone through all of those. And reading a comic book or watching a movie or going to my happy place, watching a Star Trek or Doctor Who episode helped. just for a little bit. It's not a cure-all, just provided a little relief to help reset the brain and get out there and fight another day. And now one of the things that my generation grew up with and loved, Marvel, is gone. While that is a bummer, we're gonna be fine. There's plenty out there to do, and who knows, maybe something will rise up to take its place, and maybe one of you will create it. In the meantime, I promise to continue being an idiot with a microphone who is chronicling Disney Marvel's demise, mocking or praising entertainment, and generally having a good time. It's a tragic world, but we still need to laugh once in a while. You guys have provided plenty for me in the comments section and in the chat, and if I can provide a chuckle or two for you at Hollywood's or my expense, I consider it a job done. Pop culture is culture, and escapism is important, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com.
Did you do it?
Yes.
What did it cost?
Everything.